In the depths of medieval Scandinavia, where the northern lights danced across endless forests and the Baltic Sea lapped against rocky shores, a word emerged that would echo through centuries of history. Varangian. The very sound carries within it the essence of adventure, of sworn oaths, and of men who would reshape the political landscape of Eastern Europe. These were not mere raiders or merchants, but something far more complex, bound together by sacred vows of loyalty and mutual protection. The term itself springs from the Old Norse, Varangi, rooted in verir, meaning pledges or oaths. Unlike the loose confederations of raiders that characterized much of Viking activity, Varangians operated within structured brotherhoods where personal honor and collective obligation formed the bedrock of their identity. They were oath-sworn companions, bound by sacred vows that transcended the typical relationships of their time. Imagine, if you will, the mist-covered island of Gotland in the Baltic Sea. Here, archaeologists have uncovered one of history's most remarkable treasures, silver hoards numbering in the hundreds, containing an extraordinary concentration of Islamic dirhams, Byzantine solidi, and Western European deniers. The Spillings hoard alone, discovered in 1999, contained over 14,000 silver coins and numerous silver objects weighing approximately 67 kilograms. This gleaming testament to Varangian commercial networks spans from the 8th to the 11th centuries, mapping directly onto the period of their eastward expansion. From the Swedish territories of Uppland and Södermanland, regions that would later coalesce into the medieval Kingdom of Sweden, these warrior merchants set forth. The Mälaren Valley, with its intricate network of waterways connecting to the Baltic Sea, served as their launching point for expeditions that would eventually reach Constantinople and Baghdad. At Birka, the premier trading center of 9th and 10th century Sweden, excavations reveal a cosmopolitan settlement with artifacts spanning from Greenland walrus ivory to Chinese silk. The socio-political conditions in 9th century Scandinavia created the perfect storm for eastward expansion. Population pressure in the fertile but limited agricultural lands of central Sweden coincided with the consolidation of royal power under emerging dynasties. The traditional egalitarian structure of Scandinavian society faced increasing strain as successful war leaders accumulated wealth and followers, creating a class of professional warriors who required constant opportunities for profit and glory. The fragmentation of the Carolingian Empire after Charlemagne's death in 814 disrupted established Western trade routes, forcing Scandinavian merchants to seek alternative pathways to the wealth of the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. The river systems of Eastern Europe, particularly the Volga and Dnieper routes, offered unprecedented access to these lucrative markets. Unlike the hazardous sea voyages required for Western expansion, the eastern rivers provided relatively safe passage for large expeditions carrying substantial trade goods. The relationship between Varangians and their Western Viking counterparts reveals fundamental differences in motivation and methodology. While Norwegian and Danish Vikings primarily pursued raiding, territorial conquest, and seasonal campaigns, the Swedish Varangians developed a more sophisticated approach, combining military prowess with commercial acumen. Their expeditions typically involved larger groups traveling together for extended periods, often establishing winter quarters in strategic locations along major rivers. The technological innovations that enabled Varangian success included modifications to traditional Scandinavian shipbuilding techniques. While Western Vikings perfected the longship for coastal raiding and ocean voyages, Varangians developed shallow draft vessels optimized for river navigation. These ships, capable of being portaged between river systems, featured reinforced keels and flexible construction, allowing them to withstand the stresses of being dragged over land between waterways. Archaeological evidence from Staraya Latiga, often considered the first major Varangian settlement in Eastern Europe, demonstrates the sophisticated nature of these early establishments. Founded around 753, the settlement shows clear Scandinavian architectural influences alongside Slavic and Finnic elements, suggesting a multicultural community organized around trade and craft production. The discovery of Scandinavian-style longhouses, specialized workshops for metalworking and bead production, and substantial quantities of imported goods confirms the site's role as a major commercial center. The material culture of the Varangians reveals their adaptability and cultural synthesis. Weapon finds show a preference for high-quality Frankish swords, often bearing inscriptions like Ulfbert or Ingelrii, combined with Scandinavian-style spearheads and axes. Personal ornaments frequently combine Scandinavian artistic motifs with Byzantine and Islamic influences, creating distinctive hybrid styles that mark the archaeological signature of Varangian presence. The transformation of scattered river systems into a coherent commercial highway represented one of medieval Europe's most ambitious logistical achievements. The route, from the Varangians to the Greeks, as chronicled in the primary chronicle, evolved from existing waterways used by local populations into a sophisticated network capable of supporting large-scale expeditions carrying tons of merchandise across thousands of miles. The Dnieper River system formed the backbone of this route. Its 1,400-mile length connected the forests of the north with the steppes approaching the Black Sea. The northern terminus began at the Neva River, flowing from Lake Ladoga into the Gulf of Finland. Varangian expeditions would navigate upstream into Lake Ladoga, then continue south via the Fokhof River to reach Lake Ilmen. From this crucial junction, multiple routes diverged toward the Dnieper system. Novgorod emerged as the northern anchor of the entire system, though its relationship to the waterway developed gradually over the 9th and 10th centuries. The settlement's strategic position at the convergence of multiple river routes made it an inevitable control point for expeditions heading south. Archaeological layers from this period reveal a cosmopolitan trading center where Scandinavian merchants established permanent quarters alongside Slavic, Finnic, and Baltic populations. Smolensk occupied a crucial intermediate position where the western Dwina and Dnieper systems approached each other, requiring only a relatively short portage between major waterways. The settlement's location on elevated ground overlooking the Dnieper provided natural defensive advantages while offering excellent visibility for monitoring river traffic. Archaeological evidence indicates that Smolensk developed rapidly during the 9th century, transforming from a modest Slavic settlement into a major commercial center under Varangian influence. Kiev represented the crown jewel of the entire route system, positioned where the Dnieper's navigable upper reaches met the dangerous but passable lower river leading to the Black Sea. The settlement's commanding position on bluffs overlooking the river provided both defensive advantages and symbolic authority over all traffic attempting to pass. Under Varangian control, Kiev evolved from a regional Slavic center into the political and commercial capital of a vast territorial network extending from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The establishment of tribute systems represented a crucial innovation in Varangian commercial strategy, transforming potentially hostile Slavic populations into reliable suppliers of trade goods and military support. Rather than simply raiding for slaves and portable wealth, Varangian leaders developed sophisticated arrangements that guaranteed regular deliveries of furs, honey, wax, and other valuable commodities. The seasonal nature of river navigation fundamentally shaped Varangian commercial operations. Spring expeditions took advantage of maximum water levels created by snowmelt and spring rains, allowing heavily loaded vessels to navigate shallow sections that became impassable later in the year. Summer trading seasons offered the most favorable conditions for large-scale expeditions with stable water levels and predictable weather patterns. Winter months were utilized for preparation, maintenance, and local trade activities. The most dangerous section of the entire route system lay in the Dnieper Rapids, a series of 7 major cataracts where the river dropped approximately 130 feet over a distance of 40 miles. Constantine Porphyrogenitus provides detailed descriptions of these rapids in his De Administrando Imperio, recording both their Slavic and Norse names while describing the specific techniques used to navigate each obstacle. The rapids required different approaches depending on water levels and specific conditions, ranging from careful navigation through narrow channels to complete portage around the most dangerous sections. The emergence of the primary chronicles account of the calling of the Varangians in 862 represents one of medieval Europe's most contentious historical narratives, blending verifiable political events with legendary elements that serve the ideological needs of later Kievan rulers. According to the chronicles account, the Slavic tribes of the Ilmen region and various Finnic groups had previously expelled Varangian tribute collectors, but subsequently found themselves unable to maintain internal peace. The text records their supposed declaration: "Our land is great and rich, but there is no order in it. Come to rule and reign over us." Modern archaeological evidence provides a more complex picture of Varangian settlement patterns that challenges the chronicle's neat narrative of invited rulership. Excavations at Staraja Latiga revealed continuous Scandinavian presence from approximately 750, more than a century before the supposed calling. The material culture from these early levels shows not the artifacts of invited administrators, but the equipment of warrior merchants, weapons caches, silver hoards, and the specialized tools of long-distance traders. The figure of Rurik himself presents historians with a fascinating puzzle of identity and historical verification. The primary chronicle describes him as one of three brothers who divided the northern territories among themselves, with Rurik taking Novgorod, Cineas controlling Belozero, and Truvor ruling Izborsk. However, the names Cineas and Truvor bear striking resemblance to Old Norse terms sign and through varing, suggesting these may represent misunderstood references to Rurik's household and retinue rather than actual siblings. Staraja Latiga provides the most compelling archaeological evidence for early Varangian settlement and the gradual development of Rus' political organization. The earliest occupation layers reveal a multicultural community where Scandinavian settlers lived alongside Slavic and Finnic populations. Scandinavian-style longhouses characterized by central hearths and raised sleeping platforms appear alongside Slavic semi-subterranean dwellings and specialized workshops for metalworking, bead production, and leather processing. The integration of Scandinavian, Slavic, and Finnic cultures in early Rus territories created distinctive hybrid societies that retained elements from all contributing traditions while developing unique characteristics adapted to local conditions. This cultural synthesis is most clearly visible in material culture, where artifacts combine artistic motifs, technological traditions, and functional requirements from different sources to create distinctly Rus objects. The emergence of Oleg as the dominant Varangian leader in the late 9th century marked a decisive shift from the fragmented tribal arrangements that had characterized early Rus territories to a unified political structure capable of projecting power across vast distances. His rise to power occurred through a combination of calculated political maneuvering and decisive military action that eliminated rival claimants, while consolidating control over the most valuable commercial routes in Eastern Europe. Oleg's decision to launch a southern expedition targeting Kiev represented a fundamental departure from the primarily commercial focus that had characterized earlier Varangian activities in the region. Intelligence gathered through existing trade networks had revealed Kiev's strategic importance as the gateway to the lower Dnieper and the approaches to Constantinople. The expedition that departed from Novgorod in approximately 882 represented the largest coordinated Varangian military operation undertaken to that date. The 907 expedition against Constantinople represented the culmination of Oleg's strategic vision, demonstrating the military potential of the unified Rus state while securing favorable commercial agreements with the Byzantine Empire. The scale of this operation, involving according to chronicle accounts over 2,000 vessels and 80,000 warriors, required unprecedented coordination of resources from throughout Oleg's territories. While these numbers may reflect chronicle exaggeration, archaeological evidence from departure points along the Dnieper system confirms substantial military preparations during this period. The siege of Constantinople, while ultimately unsuccessful in capturing the city, achieved Oleg's primary objectives of demonstrating Rus military power and securing favorable terms for future commercial relationships. Byzantine chronicles describe the terror inspired by the Rus assault, including the famous legend of Oleg nailing his shield to the gates of Constantinople as a symbol of victory. The treaty negotiations that concluded the 907 expedition secured favorable terms for Rus merchants in Constantinople, including reduced customs duties, guaranteed accommodation, and legal protections that facilitated long-distance trade. Igor's succession to the throne of Kiev demonstrated the institutional stability that Oleg had established during his 3 decades of rule. Igor's early reign faced immediate challenges that tested both his personal capabilities and the resilience of the political structure he had inherited. The Pecheneg, a Turkic nomadic confederation that had established dominance over the southern steppes, launched coordinated attacks against Rus territories that threatened to sever the crucial connections between Kiev and the Black Sea approaches. Igor's first major military expedition targeted the Drevlians, a Slavic tribe that had ceased tribute payments following Oleg's death, apparently calculating that the new ruler lacked the military capability necessary to enforce existing obligations. Igor's most ambitious military undertaking, the 941 expedition against Constantinople, represented an attempt to replicate Oleg's spectacular success while establishing his own reputation as a military leader capable of threatening the Byzantine Empire. The approach to Constantinople through the Bosphorus exposed Igor's fleet to the full weight of Byzantine naval power, including the deployment of Greek fire weapons that proved devastatingly effective against the wooden vessels of the Rus expedition. Contemporary Byzantine accounts describe the terror and confusion that spread through Igor's fleet as vessels erupted in flames that could not be extinguished by conventional means. The destruction of Igor's fleet represented more than a simple military defeat. It constituted a catastrophic loss of resources and manpower that threatened the stability of the entire Rus state. The second expedition against Constantinople in 944 reflected the lessons learned from the earlier disaster while demonstrating Igor's determination to restore Rus prestige through successful military action. The 944 campaign achieved its primary objectives through diplomatic negotiation rather than military conquest, securing a favorable commercial treaty that restored Rus trading privileges while avoiding the catastrophic losses that had characterized the earlier expedition. Igor's death in 945, killed during a tribute collection expedition among the Drevlians, marked the end of an era characterized by military expansion and the beginning of a period focused on internal consolidation and administrative development. The succession of his widow Olga to the regency demonstrated the institutional maturity that the Rus state had achieved despite the military setbacks of Igor's reign. Olga's assumption of power as regent for her young son Sviatoslav represented an unprecedented development in Varangian political traditions, which had previously recognized only male leadership in military and administrative roles. The administrative innovations implemented during Olga's regency addressed many of the systemic problems that had plagued Igor's reign, particularly in the areas of tribute collection and provincial administration. Olga's famous revenge against the Drevlians for Igor's murder demonstrated both her personal determination and her sophisticated understanding of psychological warfare techniques. The elaborate deceptions employed in eliminating Drevlian leadership, including the legendary burning of their capital through fire-carrying birds, revealed strategic thinking that combined practical military objectives with symbolic demonstrations of Rus power. The conversion of Olga to Christianity around 957 represented a pivotal moment in Rus cultural development, introducing religious and political concepts that would fundamentally alter the character of Varangian civilization in Eastern Europe. Her journey to Constantinople for baptism demonstrated the diplomatic sophistication that characterized her reign while establishing precedents for future religious and political relationships with the Byzantine Empire. The succession crisis that followed Sviatoslav's death in 972 plunged the Rus territories into a period of fratricidal warfare that threatened to undo the political unity achieved through decades of Varangian expansion and consolidation. The division of territories among Sviatoslav's three sons created competing power centers that inevitably led to armed conflict as each brother sought to establish supremacy over the others. Vladimir's initial position as ruler of Novgorod placed him at a significant disadvantage compared to his brothers, who controlled the wealthier southern territories and the crucial commercial routes connecting Kiev to Constantinople. Vladimir's survival during the early phases of the civil war depended on his ability to exploit Novgorod's connections to Scandinavian mercenary sources while building alliances with local Slavic populations. Vladimir's return to Novgorod in 980 with his mercenary army marked the beginning of a methodical campaign to eliminate Yarapok's supporters while consolidating control over the northern territories. The siege of Kiev in 980 represented the culmination of Vladimir's campaign against his brother, employing sophisticated siege techniques that demonstrated the military expertise he had acquired during his Scandinavian exile. The administrative reforms implemented during Vladimir's early reign addressed the systemic weaknesses that had contributed to the succession crisis, establishing clearer protocols for inheritance while strengthening the institutional frameworks necessary for governing the expanded Rus territories. Vladimir's military campaigns during the 980s targeted the remaining independent Slavic tribes and nomadic groups that threatened the stability of Rus territories. The polytheistic religious practices that characterized Vladimir's early reign reflected the diverse spiritual traditions present throughout his territories. The famous pantheon established in Kiev around 980 included Purin, the Slavic thunder god, Thor, the Scandinavian hammer wielder, and various other deities representing the multicultural nature of Vladimir's realm. The legendary account of Vladimir's choosing of faiths around 987, while likely embellished by later Christian chroniclers, reflects genuine diplomatic and religious considerations that influenced the ruler's eventual decision to adopt Byzantine Christianity. The practical considerations that influenced Vladimir's religious decision extended far beyond personal spiritual concerns to encompass crucial political and economic factors. The marriage alliance negotiated with Byzantine Emperor Basil II in 988 represented one of medieval Europe's most significant diplomatic achievements, linking the Rus state with the most prestigious imperial dynasty while securing military cooperation against mutual enemies. The Varangian military expedition that departed for Byzantine territories in 988 represented the largest coordinated military operation undertaken by Rus forces since the disasters of Igor's reign. Vladimir's baptism in 988 marked the beginning of the most profound cultural transformation in Rus history, introducing religious concepts and institutional practices that would fundamentally alter the character of Varangian civilization in Eastern Europe. The mass baptism of Kiev's population that followed Vladimir's conversion represented a dramatic break with centuries of pagan tradition while establishing Christianity as the official religion of the Rus state. The establishment of the Varangian Guard in Constantinople around 988 CE emerged from the convergence of Byzantine military necessity and the availability of highly skilled Scandinavian warriors seeking profitable service under the most prestigious ruler in the medieval world. Emperor Basil II faced a critical military situation as Bulgarian rebels threatened to dismember the empire's Balkan territories, while domestic conspiracies challenged his authority from within the capital itself. The initial Varangian contingent that formed the nucleus of the Guard consisted of approximately 6,000 warriors drawn from the most experienced units in Vladimir's army. These warriors brought with them the accumulated tactical knowledge of generations of Scandinavian warfare, and Swedish men left to enlist in the Byzantine Varangian Guard in such numbers that a medieval Swedish law from Västergötland declared no one could inherit while staying in Greece to stop the emigration. The Guard's initial deployment against the Bulgarian rebels demonstrated their exceptional combat capabilities while establishing their reputation as the empire's most reliable military unit. The successful suppression of the Bulgarian rebellion within 2 years of the Guard's establishment confirmed Basil's decision to incorporate these foreign warriors into the imperial military structure on a permanent basis. The Varangians' alien dress and fearsome demeanor would become a symbol of the emperor's presence. Modern archaeology has revealed the path of the Varangian Guard around the Mediterranean world, with 11th century Norse equipment being found in Syria and Bulgaria. The recruitment practices established for the Varangian Guard created a selective process that attracted the most capable warriors from throughout Scandinavia while maintaining the unit's elite character and combat effectiveness. The journey to Constantinople served as an extended evaluation period during which potential guards demonstrated their endurance, discipline, and commitment to imperial service. The oath ceremonies that formally inducted new members into the Varangian Guard represented solemn rituals that combined Scandinavian warrior traditions with Byzantine imperial symbolism to create binding commitments that transcended ordinary military service obligations. The ceremony typically took place in the Hagia Sophia, where candidates swore personal loyalty to the emperor while receiving blessed weapons that symbolized their sacred duty to defend imperial authority. The Guard's role in major imperial campaigns extended far beyond their initial service against the Bulgarian rebels to encompass participation in virtually every significant military operation undertaken during the reigns of Basil II and his successors. Their deployment to Sicily beginning in 1038 marked their first major overseas assignment, where Guard units served alongside Norman mercenaries and imperial regulars in campaigns designed to reassert Byzantine control over territories lost to Islamic conquest. Harold Sigurdsson's arrival in Constantinople around 1034 marked the beginning of the most celebrated individual career in Varangian Guard history. The defeat and death of his half-brother Olaf II at the Battle of Stiklestad in 1030 had forced the 15-year-old Harold into exile, beginning a period of wandering that would eventually lead him to the imperial capital. Harold's first major campaign assignment came during the renewed Byzantine offensive in Sicily, where Guard units were deployed to support the empire's attempt to reclaim territories lost to Arab conquest. The siege of Syracuse in 1038 showcased Harold's emerging reputation as a military innovator as he developed novel approaches to reducing fortified positions that minimized Guard casualties while maximizing the psychological impact on enemy defenders. The wealth that Harold accumulated during his Sicilian service provided the financial foundation for his later political ambitions. Successful campaign participation entitled Guards to substantial shares of captured booty alongside their regular imperial salaries. Harold's careful management of his growing fortune demonstrated the financial acumen that would enable his eventual return to Scandinavian politics as a serious contender for royal power. Harold's decision to leave imperial service around 1043 reflected both his accumulated wealth and his growing ambitions for independent political leadership. The substantial treasure that Harold carried with him upon leaving Constantinople provided the material foundation for his subsequent bid for the Norwegian throne. The gradual eclipse of Varangian military dominance in the decades following the Norman conquest fundamentally altered the character of political authority throughout the Rus territories. The death of Yaroslav the Wise in 1054 marked the end of the last generation of rulers who maintained direct personal connections to Scandinavian political traditions. The administrative innovations implemented by Oleg during his reign established the foundation for the medieval Rus state that would dominate Eastern Europe for centuries. The development of standardized legal codes, military organization, and tribute systems created institutional frameworks that survived changes in leadership while providing stability for the diverse populations under Rus control. The compilation of the Russkaya Pravda during the 1010s and 1020s involved extensive consultation with legal experts representing different cultural traditions. The resulting legal code reflected this multicultural input, while establishing new standards that emphasized the protection of property rights, the regulation of commercial transactions, and the systematic punishment of criminal activities that threatened social stability. The fragmentation of centralized Varangian authority during the later 11th century resulted from the combination of succession disputes, regional economic interests, and the practical impossibility of maintaining effective control over territories that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The principle of lateral succession established by Yaroslav's testament attempted to prevent fratricidal warfare by creating systematic procedures for the rotation of princely authority among eligible family members. The Mongol invasions that began in 1237 encountered a politically fragmented Rus that proved incapable of coordinating effective resistance against the systematic military campaigns that Batu Khan directed against the major political centers of Eastern Europe. The systematic destruction that followed the Mongol conquest of Kiev in 1240 marked the definitive end of Varangian political dominance in Eastern Europe. Yet the cultural and institutional foundations established during 4 centuries of Scandinavian rule continued to shape the development of Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian societies long after the last Rurikid princes had submitted to Mongol authority. The survival of distinctly Rus cultural traditions throughout the period of Mongol domination demonstrated the deep roots that Varangian innovations had established within the social fabric of Eastern European populations. The archaeological discoveries that have revolutionized scholarly understanding of Varangian material culture began with the systematic excavations conducted at Staraya Latiga, which revealed the sophisticated character of early Scandinavian settlements in Eastern Europe while demonstrating the extensive commercial networks that connected these northern outposts to markets throughout the medieval world. The role of Varangians in connecting northern Europe to Byzantium, the Islamic world, and Central Asia becomes most apparent through the analysis of trade goods and monetary systems that linked these diverse regions within integrated commercial networks spanning thousands of miles. The Varangian commercial system created unprecedented opportunities for cultural interaction between societies that had previously maintained minimal contact. Modern scholarly debates about Varangian influence have evolved significantly since the 18th century controversies between Normanist and anti-Normanist historians, with contemporary research employing interdisciplinary approaches that combine archaeological evidence, linguistic analysis, genetic studies, and comparative historical investigation. The scholarly consensus that has emerged from decades of interdisciplinary research recognizes the Varangian period as a crucial formative stage in Eastern European development. The transformation of Varangian warrior merchants into the founders of lasting political dynasties and cultural traditions represents one of medieval Europe's most remarkable examples of successful cultural adaptation and institutional innovation. Their legacy survived the political catastrophes that destroyed their immediate governmental structures, persisting through centuries of foreign domination to influence the eventual emergence of modern Eastern European nations. The enduring significance of their historical legacy demonstrates the transformative potential of sustained cultural interaction and the lasting impact that relatively small groups of determined individuals can achieve when they successfully adapt their traditions to new environments while remaining open to learning from the societies they encounter. In the mists of time, where northern warriors once carved their names into the very foundations of Eastern European civilization, their story continues to whisper through the ages, a testament to the power of human ambition and the enduring bonds of sworn brotherhood.